How's it going, everyone? Today we are going to sharpen this Spyderco Manix Lightweight in Rex 45 DLC, the white handle from GP Knives. We're going to sharpen this guy. It's got a factory edge currently. On this new system I got, it's pretty new to the market, called the Hapstone RS. It's their budget entry line of sharpeners, but it punches above its weight. So I've been using this for a couple weeks now, on and off. I'm not a pro at it yet, but I'm going to walk through the basics of how to sharpen a Spyderco in general and specifically on the Hapstone. So to get started, first thing on your Hapstone, what you're going to do is you have these clamps. These clamps are adjustable. You go in and out. You can flip them upside down, but you want them centered in the middle for pocket knives. So tighten it back down. We want it centered in the middle like it is. This is our stone holder. Our stone holder is a detachable piece on a rod and ball. So this comes off. It's actually a two-piece stone holder. The rod for the stone holder actually comes through the end of it, so you kind of have to hold it to avoid it. But it sits securely up here. This fits 4-inch and 6-inch stones. This is adjustable. It's very well made. This is about $200. And we'll sharpen basically anything. It'll sharpen kitchen knives. If you put the things out here, it'll sharpen pocket knives. This is how you flip it. Just a couple pieces, relatively simple sharpener, but it works really well. You adjust the angle with these two spots back here. This is the macro adjuster. So if you turn this knob, you can move this post up and down quite a bit to adjust the angle from, I don't know, from 13 to 30 degrees-ish. And if you want to fine-tune the adjustment, at the top here, there's a rotary mechanism that you can screw up and down to just fine-tune your angle in. So to get started to sharpening Spyderco or anything else in a clamp system like this where it has metal clamps, what I suggest, first thing you do is get a piece of chamois cloth, which is sheepskin leather. It's a thin material that's very absorbative. It's meant for drying off cars when you wash them. I would suggest getting a big sheet of it and cutting off some pieces of this for your jaw clamps. It protects the knife. It keeps it centered vertically. It keeps it in the jaws from moving around without damaging the steel or anything else. It just keeps it safe and keeps it secure in your jaws. So we're going to take our knife, and on a clamp system where you can clamp on the full flat grind, like the TS Prof, you can clamp right on the flat grind. We're going to put the blade in roughly centered from tip to heel. So about the same amount of knife hanging off in the front as the back. And we're going to loosely tighten it down. The Hapstone uses a 3mm Allen driver, like in a normal Allen wrench, not a Torx driver like you're used to working on with your knives. So get a good 3mm Allen driver, because you're going to have to crank these down, and you don't want something that's going to strip out. You want these to be able to be really secure. So before you crank them down, we're going to take our stones that we're using. So I use Hapstone brand premium CBN metallic bonded stones. These are top-notch, fantastic, kick-ass stones. I can't recommend them more. So these will give us killer results. This 150 is what I use to profile for. So make sure you're using, when you sharpen, you start at a low enough grit to actually make a dent in your edge and reprofile. Because if you have a factory edge and you're hitting it with a 400 grit, you're never going to get a nicely profiled edge. So you need to start low enough to actually make a dent. So we're going to load up our stone. And we're just going to take it and we're going to line it up. We're going to touch the stone to the very heel of the edge, the very end of the edge. And then we're going to take the Manix, which is still loose in the clamps, and we're going to rotate it until the flat grind line at the ricasso, at the base of the blade, the flat grind line is parallel with the stone. This applies to any sharpening system with a stone on a holder. You want your heel to be able to be completely encapsulated by the stone without hitting the ricasso. So once they're parallel, you can't hit anything. You're in the right spot. So traditional wisdom on sharpening, which doesn't work as well on Spyderco's, but it works on other knives, is you want your tip and your heel, if you draw a line between them, you want that line to be parallel to the clamp. And on a Spyderco, on a PM2, on a Manix, on a Native, on a Para 3, it's pretty close to the same, but it's not quite the same as lining it up on the flat grind line. So always line up on the flat grind line if you don't want to damage the base of your blade. Okay, we're really going to crank this thing down. The jaws kind of deform around the blade to hold it in place. Check for a wiggle. Nothing there. So since this is a DLC Spyderco, before we do anything else, I don't do this with satin knives, but I do this with other knives and DLC Spydercos. So I'm going to take a piece of good quality electrical tape, not cheap stuff. You want to spend the $3 on a roll of real tape. And we're going to put this over the flat grind so that when I push the stone all the way to the heel, I don't accidentally hit any of the coating and rub the coating off. So this will be pushed up against the flat grind line. I'm using my fingernail to kind of like tuck it in that little groove. And once I got that in there, that part of the DLC will be protected, so I can take the stone and get really tight up against and make a nice square heel. So do it both sides. Okay, got our tape. Got a little bit too much on this side. Okay. Okay, this little step's pretty important. It will save your knife from looking like it has a jacked up heel just by taping this stuff off. So we got it taped off. The first thing we're going to do before we start sharpening is we're going to set the angle of this edge. Now, the best way to set an angle, if you just want to sharpen to the closest angle that the existing edge is at, is to use a Sharpie. We're drawing on our edge. Now, if we just wanted to find out what that was and we didn't have an angle cube, we would just start sharpening and adjusting the angle up and down until all the Sharpie disappeared as evenly as possible on both sides at whatever angle we chose. But since I like to sharpen all of my Spydercos to being the same angle, Spydercos are supposed to be sharpened from the factory at 17 degrees. They often will be at 15 and 19 on one side, or 17 and 17 sometimes. But they're supposed to average out at 17 degrees. So that's where I start. And to set the angle on the Hapstone, you're going to do is you have a flat spot here. It says 0 level. Put that right there. And then we're going to zero our stone. Zero our stone. There we go. And then we're going to take the arm, set it on the stone in the middle of the blade. And we are currently at 17.1 degrees. So if we were farther off, I would take this bottom piece and I'd move it up if I had to go to a couple degrees. But since we're just going a little tiny bit, I'm going to take the micro adjuster that's in the back right here, open it up, and just give it a couple little twists to get us at 17 degrees. Now, before we start sharpening, I'm going to see what the existing edge does look like. So we're just going to do some light streaks over the Sharpie to see what disappears. So at this angle, right now, the leading edge of the bevel is getting hit. So the sharpened edge is getting touched. But the rest of the bevel is not, which means the angle that we're at on this side 17 degrees is higher than that existing angle. So this existing angle is less than 17. On the opposite side, the Sharpie is disappearing off most of the bevel, but it's more oriented towards the top. So this would be an angle is probably a little over 17. But since I like to be a little consistent with my knives and have a benchmark where I know I can just pick up a knife to resharpen it and throw it in here, we're going to sharpen this at 17. If you wanted to match one of these sides with a Sharpie or an average or whatever you want to do, this is how you figure out how much metal you're going to have to take off, is where the Sharpie is, and kind of thinking through the thought process of what it's going to take to get rid of it. But we're going to leave it at 17 degrees because that's what I want my knives at. So now what we're going to do is reprofile the edge. This is the most important step, is we're setting the foundation for what this knife edge is going to look like with this stone. So since we don't have any chips or anything crazy going on the edge, this factory edge, we'll use a 150. And we're just going to try to set the bevel all even to 17 degrees and take the heel out. And then we're going to flip the sides and keep on working until we're all done. So that was a little spring popping out. That's annoying. There we go. So before we get sharpening, we want to make sure our stop collar, this piece right here, is set for the knife that we're sharpening. So this is how, if you ever see knives with scratches that go up the face, it's because the person wasn't using a stop collar and the stone went past the front of the edge onto the blade. So with this squeezed tight, there's a spring on it. We just want to swing an arc and make sure that it always stays below the front of the edge. So right now we're safe. This isn't going to touch the blade because the stop collar is in the way. So now we're just going to reprofile the edge. I'm putting a little bit of pressure on it because we have a decent chunk of material to move, or a little bit of Sharpie anyway. Sometimes it goes fast. Sometimes it's a little bit of work. Okay, now to do the heel on a Spyderco, if you have good stones that have a square edge without grit on the side, so like most diamond plates or these Hapstones, for example, they have a very square edge. What you're going to do to do the heel is you're going to take your stone and push it up against the electrical tape. If this is a satin blade, there wouldn't be tape there. You just push it right up against the ricasso. And you're just going to kind of saw away a little bit. Do some vertical strokes up and down, making sure that your electrical tape is shoved in that little crack so you don't scrape off the DLC. A couple vertical strokes and then a couple of strokes fading out into the edge. There we go. And then we're creating a heel. So there is a difficult spot on most Spydercos to get. The heel is one thing, is to get a nice square into your edge. But on most Spydercos I see from Golden anyway, there is a little divot that happens right in front, a quarter inch in front of the edge, that'll have a little Sharpie still in it. So you just got to keep on scrubbing on that spot to get that to go away and even everything out. So let's make sure my stones are all clean. And so to get into the little corner, it's not necessarily the best recommendation, but what I do is to get back in that corner, I twist the stone a little bit, so I'm not letting it ride flat, and I put a little bit of pressure on there. So I'm digging into where I'm trying to get. I'm not just sawing a flat spot in the blade. I'm kind of reaching back into the corner a little bit. I'm not just riding flat. I'm trying to get way back to the end of the heel. Okay. And now that spot's gone. Since this angle that we were sharpening at was higher than the existing angle, we already have a burr. So what you're going to want to do now is you're going to feel the front of the edge for metal curled under. That's called your burr. That means you've apexed the edge, or you've sharpened it at the same angle, or at least as high as the angle as the leading edge. So since we have a burr, we're going to flip it now, and we're going to sharpen this other side. This other side, the Sharpie was closer than the first side, so it should be a smoother process and less material to remove. So the Sharpie comes right off on this side, and you can hear it hitting the burr when I go up on the burr. So yeah, this side looks very close to 17 degrees to start with in the factory. It's sharpening up really easily. Okay, we're doing our heel now. And you never want to saw on one spot. You want to keep on moving. I like to do strokes in this direction, forward strokes as my baseline. But then I also like to do backward strokes to kind of mix it up and change the scratch pattern a little bit to see where it's cutting. To see if when you switch your scratch pattern, there's any spots that still have a different sheen than the rest of the edge, like they're not getting hit. And just do scrubbing strokes on the heel. So our heel is looking really nice. It's nice and square. I got it pushed up as tight as I can with the tape being there. So this edge looks nice. We're going to feel the bottom with our fingernails. We have a burr. So we have sharpened to a burr already. So now we've profiled both sides. We're going to go through this side, line it up, make sure the scratches all look nice, make sure this edge is done. Since we're done profiling after this pass, what we're doing is just setting the foundation for what the edge is going to look like. And then we'll go up as many stones as we want to go up. We'll probably just go up to 400, which is what the edges I've been really liking are on a Spyderco. But the same would apply to the rest of the stones going up to 8,000. This profiling stone is the one that's most important. It takes by far the most time. So this is going pretty quick and easy. So the benefits of having good stones, besides they leave a really much more attractive finish than less expensive stones, is they cut really fast. So this 150 stone is making short work of this Rex 45. It's heating it up real quick, but not leaving a scratchy mess of an edge with deep scratches. It's still nice looking. And that's the benefit of CBN over diamond. Is CBN will leave you with a nicer end product at a lower grit. Okay, our tip needs a little bit more work. It's not quite all the way there yet. So to get the top portion of the bevel of the tip, even with the rest of the knife, what I'm going to do is going to take my finger, I'm going to put it underneath the tip and use that to kind of hold the knife or the stone from rolling. I don't want the stone to roll off the end of the tip. I want the stone to ride completely flat and go about halfway off the tip, and my finger will keep it from rolling. Okay, there we go. It's looking good. So this side, I'm just going to check it out in the light. And I'm checking to make sure that the scratches all look like they're going the same direction, that there's not anything obvious. I see something right here. There's a little bit of Sharpie left here, back in the heel. Now's the time to fix your mistakes. So when you go up to higher stones, it just gets harder and harder to hide your scratches. So you want to get rid of the scratches from the previous stone every time before you move on. So we want whatever we leave here to be the best it can be. Okay, that side's done. Second pass on the second side. We don't need to really profile anything much on this edge. We're just kind of aligning the scratches and making it look nice. The heel is done. It's nice and square. Bevels look consistent on both sides of the knife. They're both about the same size. Okay, now we're done with the 150 stone. And now we're going to jump to the 400 stone, 400 grit Hapstone Premium CBN. I really love these stones. I can't recommend them enough. They're not cheap, but if you do this, if you sharpen on a fairly regular basis, they're 100% worth the money. Can't recommend them more highly than anything. They changed the game for me and made doing this professionally possible. So now we're just going to a lighter touch than the last stone. We're just going to try to reduce the burr. Is our goal is to reduce the burr by doing a couple flips with a higher grit stone. And we're just trying to reduce the scratches on the bevel to make it look nicer. But making it shinier isn't making it sharper. Reducing the burr and making a sharp apex is what makes it sharper. The polishing of the bevels is just bonus points. Okay, now we're going to flip. So we're doing less time at a higher grit, less pressure. All we're trying to do is reduce the burr. We reduce the burr by flipping back side to side. Hint, never put oil on the rod on your Hapstone RS. It really kind of gums it up. I try to oil this thing to lubricate it, and it's made it kind of sticky. So don't do that. Now let's do one more pass on this side. Now we're just trying to reduce the burr. The burr, every time we flip the knife over, is getting smaller, and it's flipping which side it's pointing at. We'll do one last pass with 400 grit. Now is the time we would switch to a lower grit stone or a higher grit stone if we want to keep on going up to get a mirror or polished edge. But at 400 grit, these Hapstone CBNs leave a really nice satin edge that's really attractive and extremely sharp. So I like to stop at 400. All right. So now we're done with the stones. So to strop this, I'm going to recommend using stropping on the device. I don't strop by hand as much anymore. I strop with a 6x1 plate. This is kangaroo leather from Hapstone. It has 3 micron gunny juice. I recommend 3 micron if you're just going to get one. It's a good all around for actually cutting steel and giving a little bit of polish, and it kind of just does the trick. It's all you really need if you just want to get a sharp edge. You're not trying to get a mirror edge. Okay, flip back over to side 1. Now, when you're stropping, you only want to do pulling strokes and then lift, because if you push into the edge with the leather, you'll cut it. Before we do that, our last stone we used was thicker than this strop is, which means the angle is no longer the same, which means we need to readjust the angle back to 17 degrees, which is part of the reason why I like always having a known angle. Is it makes it so it's more precise when I just know where to strop at. So we're like, this changes almost like an angle, a degree. I'll try doing that again. Changing the strop thickness just a little bit changes the degree on this significantly, like a whole degree. Well, we bottom that out. We're gonna have to go back up and use the big stopper. Okay, so back at 17, we have our strop in there now. And we're just going to do pulling strokes lightly on the edge, trying to pull any burr off. We're polishing the bevels lightly, but the primary goal is to get it sharp, is to straighten the apex out. Take the metal fibers, make them pointy at the end, take any burr and just pull it off. So let's do a couple light passes. Careful on the tip. Always lift off when you get the tip, otherwise you'll scar the leather and kind of ruin your strop real quick. Just one pull can really destroy strop. Okay, we'll do one more pass. Again, we're just trying to get this sharp. We're not trying to get this mirror edge. We're just trying to make it a little bit sharper by refining what we sharpened with the stones. Okay, all done. Put our strap away so we don't damage it. Take this out with our Allen driver. Now, see how sharp it is. I just use a piece of notebook paper. I don't use anything crazy, but I can feel when it's sharp. You know what I mean? I've done enough that it just feels a certain way. So very sharp edge. I'm going to pull from tip or from heel to tip, looking for any snags or any burrs, just testing how sharp it is. But it's very sharp. It's just, it cuts paper like any good edge should, but it's a little extra sharp. So that is how you sharpen a Spyderco. This is our end result with the 400 grit edge. There's our heel. Now, if you sharpen a DLC knife like this and you want to clean it up a little bit, I would suggest getting some oil. This is honing oil. Put a drop on the DLC on each side like this. Get a magic eraser, Mr. Clean magic eraser like this. And we're just going to kind of get some oil on it and wipe down the whole edge or the whole blade. That will remove any of the sharpening dust, and it will help keep the DLC looking nice and dark. The oil kind of soaks into it and it kind of like moisturizes it almost. So now, then we wipe it off using a chamois cloth, same stuff we used in the jaws of the machine. Now we have a nice, dark, clean blade that's been sharpened. That's it. Well, thank you. That was fun, and I will catch you on the next instructional video. Bye.